So what we're going to go over today, like we talked about, is the form builder. We're going to do just a quick overview of that form builder, talk about some different examples and what we see our customers using that form builder for, just to kind of help get some ideas, some ways that you may be able to leverage the form builder in ways that you may not be using it now. And then we'll go into an example of actually building a form out together. So we're going to build a DVIR, the driver's vehicle inspection report. Fairly common thing that we see across all of our customer base are those DVIRs. So we'll walk through that, and really what we're going to focus on in today's training is kind of is an overall foundation of how to use the tool, the different features that are available to you there, but then also kind of pointing out some little tips and tricks on how to make building forms a little bit faster, a little bit easier, and how to get the form to produce the follow-up actions that you might be looking for. One other thing that we're also going to introduce today is our knowledge base articles and the way that we are embedding those into the tool and how they'll be embedded going forward. So we'll show you what that looks like as we're going through today. The last piece that we're going to do today after we go through building out that form together is we are going to do a question and answer period. So if you have questions as we're going through the form, as we're building that form together, or as we're talking about examples, if you have any of those questions, feel free to put those in the chat for this meeting. And then the last 5 minutes or so, we will make sure that I'll take a look at those and we'll answer some of the questions that you guys have put in the chat there. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. I got my screen pulled up, and on my screen, what we've got is our form builder. And for those that may not know, if you're new to the tool, if you haven't had any experience at all with the form builder, where that's going to be is that's over here on the left-hand side. You click on the forms option here, and then you're going to go under manage here, and that'll take you to this screen here where you can go ahead and build out some forms. But before we jump into that, I do want to look at just a couple examples of different forms that we've seen our customers build. So I'm going to go here into the submit section where we've got a few of these forms called out. Like we talked about, one thing we do see very often are pre-op inspections or maintenance inspections. This is an example of a 250-hour excavator inspection where we've got an asset drop down. You can go ahead and select from a list of assets in your system. We're going to do some pre-populating of current hours for that piece of equipment, then allows you to also update those hours and update the asset record. We'll talk about how to set that up when we're building out this DVIR here. And then down here below, we've got just the inspection for this 250-hour maintenance with our pass, our fail, again, with some of that follow-up logic. We'll talk about how to get that set up today and some other options we've got available there. But our form builder tool is a very flexible tool. It does allow us to do a lot of different things beyond just inspections. We've had customers that will do employee reviews with this tool. We've had customers that are taking temperature readings or bearing readings if we're talking more kind of a manufacturing setting. We also have safety teams that are using it for everything from SOWs on equipment changes or guide changes to, we've had customers that during COVID, they used it for COVID-19 screenings as employees and contractors were coming on and off site. Customers using it for incident investigation as well. So there's a lot of different uses for the tool. And if you have an idea of a way you may want to leverage the tool and how you may want to use it, and you're not quite sure if it'll work, feel free to reach out to your CSM and talk through some ideas with them, and they'll be able to let you know if that's something that we're going to be able to take care of with our forms tool or not. So those are just a few of the examples. What we're going to do now is going to just go ahead and jump right into building out this DVIR form here. So again, we're going to come back to forms and go into manage. And from here, we're going to go into create a new form template. This is going to allow us to build this new form. Now, if I wanted to make edits to an existing form rather than creating a new form, I can go right here to this drop down, search for the form that I'm looking for. Let's say I wanted to edit my downtime report, and just go ahead, search for that downtime report, click on it, and it's going to pull up that downtime report. And it's going to allow me to make edits and changes to that report. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and click on create a new template. And from here, we're going to start building out this form. So the first thing we're going to do is give that form a name and a title. What I will say is 99% of the time, your form name and title are going to be the exact same thing. There are some instances where it may be different, but typically they are going to be the same. For right now, what the form name is this is what is going to show in the mobile app or in that submit section when your teams are actually submitting these forms. So this is kind of just what I would put here is the common name, something that your teams are used to, their whatever nomenclature they may use to call this form, I would put right there. And then your form title is going to can be a little bit more detailed. This is what's going to show at the top of the PDF output for this form. So if you're filling this out, let's say it's a OSHA 301, OSHA has some pretty specific verbiage that they use for that title. You can go ahead and put that in here in the form title and then use just the short OSHA 301 right here in the form name. For example, this one I could, if I wanted to, actually spell out here, driver vehicle inspection report. Put that all there. But again, this is only going to show on the PDF output for the form, not in the mobile app or in that submit section here on the web. The last piece is just a form description. This is optional. If you want to provide a quick description for what this form is, you can do that. This will show at the very top of the form when your users are filling it out, just to provide a little bit of information to them about what they're going to be seeing and what they're going to be expected to fill out as they're going through this form. The next piece here, so we're going to go ahead and start building this out. As we look at this, one of the key things to building forms is going to be looking at your paper forms and kind of dissecting those and understanding what the best way to build that form in the Redlist form builder and what's going to be the best way to do that. As we look at this form here, we've got a couple different sections. We've got kind of our details section up here at the top. We then have our tractor and truck number section down here with these check boxes, and then we have our trailer section and then kind of a final section here. So as I'm looking at this, one of the features that we do have in the form builder is sections, so we can break it out and make sure that we're keeping this form organized, that it's very simple and easy to follow, that we're grouping information together as needed. So as I'm starting to look at this and build this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start here, and we're going to have this first section just be the asset information for this one, the asset details. I could also use, this could be truck details, whatever I wanted that to be. We're going to go ahead and just start with asset details. And as you can see here, I do have a couple other options over here on the right-hand side. I've got the ability to add additional sections here. So I know I'm going to need to add a truck and tractor section, a trailer section. So I can go ahead and just hit add here. And that's going to add my second section down below where I can add those questions down below. And then I can change the order here if I would like to. Let's say I wanted to move section 2 to the top. I can move that around using this. I can copy sections. Now that copy tool, what that's going to do is it's going to actually copy not just the section, but also the question, as well as any of the logic. And the logic you can see down here, we'll get into this a little bit later, but it's going to copy all of the logic for those questions as well. And then we've got some other additional settings, and you're able to delete that section. And if you delete the section, it'll delete all the questions as well. But as we're building this, so we'll start with our asset details. The first thing I'm going to do, a lot of this information, so things you'll see like date and time, are not things that we will typically add into a form. The reason behind that is when the user fills out the form, the system in the back end is automatically capturing the date that they created and submitted that form, as well as the time. So the only time we would actually add date or time questions into a form is when there's the potential for somebody to be submitting a form for information that happened. Let's say I'm doing an incident investigation report and I'm filling out the report 2 or 3 days after the incident happened, and we wanted to capture the date of the actual incident. Then I would add a date field and capture that information that way. For something like a DVIR, that's going to be done the day of, right before I jump in the truck or the crane or whatever it might be, before I take off for the day. So this type of information is something we're typically not going to put into a pre-op inspection or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and not worry about that right now. Again, carrier and address, you could add those if you wanted to. A lot of this is just going to be internal use anyway, so there's not necessarily a reason for carrier and address, but if you needed it, you could absolutely add those. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right down here into the tractor section here, the truck number. So we'll start there. So the first thing I'm going to do when I've got my first question here, I'm going to go ahead and hit my edit button. That's going to open up this question for me along with all the different options that I have to edit this question. The first thing I'm going to do when I open a question is I'm going to pick the question type that I want. Now we have 9 different question types. And what this is the way we present information to the user and how we want to capture information from them. So just a quick overview. We've got information question that allows you to provide information to your users. We've got a text box that allows your users to enter in a small amount of information. Text area, this is usually for comments or notes at the end of a form, like this remark section here. We're going to use a text area for. We've got check boxes, select buttons, which we'll use later. We'll kind of explain that then. And then for this one, we're actually going to use the drop down option. So I'm going to click on drop down here. And the question I'm going to use, I'm just going to take right off of here. So we're going to do the truck number. We'll put that in. Put truck number in there. And then this drop down is I've got 2 options with this drop down. I can either just start filling out truck numbers here. It's not going to be best practice, but you can do that. What's going to be best practice, because if we're doing an inspection, we want to tie this inspection to a record in the system, and any potential failures we have in the system, we want to tie to that asset record as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this existing items right here. I'm going to click on that. You can see we've got these different options here. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and select assets. What this is going to do is this is going to pull in every asset that I have in my asset section. Every asset that I've either uploaded or created in the system is going to show here in this list. If I want to filter this further, I can do that manually just by, if this test one here, I don't want that to show, so I can go ahead and remove that. I can do it manually, or I can use these additional filters down here. Asset type is going to be a very common filter that you'll use. This is, let's say I'm doing a forklift pre-op inspection or a crane pre-op inspection. I'm going to go ahead and use this asset type filter here to make sure I'm only pulling in the assets that I want. So this is our truck inspection, our semi-truck inspection. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to automatically filter my list here for me down to just the assets in the system that I have tagged as semi-trucks. Now from here, now that I've got that set up, the one piece of logic that was set up here is going to be a required question, because it's going to be critical that we attach this inspection to the asset that's selected. And so we don't want this to be missed at all. So we're going to go ahead and mark this as always being required. We'll go ahead and hit set that up. Now I've got this part done. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next section, the next question, which is going to be my odometer reading. So what I'm going to do, just one kind of quick tip here, is I would just, as you're moving through the form and you're done editing a question, go ahead and close it. What that does is it keeps the form as small as possible. So as you're moving through the form, you don't have to scroll through a lot of open questions. Makes it a little bit faster to navigate, and it also makes it a little bit easier to identify, which question you're looking for or where you want to add questions. So I'm going to go ahead and add this odometer reading. I'm going to hit the plus button here. That's going to open up my next question. Again, like we talked about on the first one, the first thing I'm going to do is change my question type. So for my odometer reading, I'm going to change this to a text question. It's just an open field here. So I'm going to change that to a text. And in my question label, we're going to put odometer reading. And then what I want to do is I want 2 things to happen when my users are filling this out. I want them to know what the last reported odometer reading was, and I want to allow them to update it to the current hours or mileage or whatever it might be. That way, if I have my equipment set up on if I have it set up in the maintenance section to trigger off of hours or mileage, right? If I've got a semi truck that I want to do a preventative maintenance on every 10,000 miles, I want my users to be able to update that. If I've got a piece of equipment that I want to perform maintenance on every 250 hours, I want the guys that are out in the field using it to be able to report on the current hours and have that be updating every day, so that when we hit that 250 hour usage or that 10,000 mile usage, it's going to automatically kick off that maintenance that needs to be done for that. So to set that up, what we're going to do is we're going to use 2 of these different logic pieces here. The first one, again, is we're going to do required. Because it's attached to my maintenance, I want to make sure that my team is always filling that out. Don't allow them to submit the form without filling this out. And then the last one I'm going to use is going to be my associate logic here. What this is going to do is this is going to tie this odometer reading to this asset up here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to click here. We got this truck number there. So we got that question. I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to hit done. So now these two questions are linked. The last piece that I need to do in order to have it pre-populate information and then also update that asset record is I'm going to come down here to external source properties. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to select my hours, or for this one, odometer reading. So I'm going to do the miles/kilometers here. What this now does for me is when my users pick an asset, it's going to pre-populate with the last reported mileage. And it's also going to allow my users to update that record so that we have the latest reported miles. And again, like we talked about, that can then trigger maintenance off of that. So now that that's set up, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So I've got my asset details section done now. If I wanted to add additional information, if I wanted the serial number, the make, the model, the VIN, whatever it might be, I can add that here in this asset details section as well. And again, I can pre-populate that information the same way we did with the odometer reading by using this associate option and then the external source properties down here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the next section, which is going to be the truck inspection. And on here, what we can see is the way this form was made. It's just a bunch of check boxes that you're either putting a check in if it's good, an X if it's bad, or you're only checking the items that are failed. We're going to set this up a little bit differently in Redlist so that we can have the follow-up action created off of it. So this is where, as we talked about at the beginning, one of the key pieces to understanding and to really getting the most out of the form builder is being able to look at your paper forms that you have, or your Excel forms, your Word forms, and being able to kind of dissect those and understanding how to translate that into Redlist so that you get the follow-up actions that you want, and then it works that it works the way you would like it to work for your users. So even though these are checkboxes here, I'm not going to build those as checkboxes. What I'm going to do, I'm going to edit this first question, and I'm going to set this up as a select button. The reason I'm going to do that, it gives me the option to, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a pass-fail NA. And on this one, I'll probably be good with just a pass-fail. I don't need the NA option. But now this gives me the ability to, because I have this pass-fail, I can set up additional logic off of that when this item fails. But before I do that, just one quick thing on select button questions is we do have these templates that you can use. However, if you want to customize this, you can. Let's say I wanted to do a yes, no instead of a pass fail, I can do that. If I wanted to add other options, you can do that. You can add up to 5, and you can set the different colors that you want for these options as well. So you can kind of customize this as best fits your use case and as best fits your teams. So we're going to switch this back to pass fail quickly. So now I've got that set up. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave my question label blank for now. And I'll tell you why we're going to do that, because one thing we see with our customers who are just first getting into the tool is that they'll go through and they'll actually build out each of these questions individually. So once I get this all set up, then I would go down, I would hit add a new question, and I would build out my airlines question. And I'm going to build it out the exact same way I built this. And that just becomes very time consuming. The best way to build this out and to go quickly is just leave this blank for now. And then what you're going to do is you're going to set up all the logic that you want to set up for all of these questions. The logic should be the same for this entire section, right? We want to make it required. We're going to do that. If we want to set up, we want to give our users the ability to attach files, photos, and videos to it. We'll do that. So we'll actually do that right now. I'm going to give my users, if there's something that, let's say if there's a failure on one of these inspection items, I want to allow my users to submit a file or a photo or what's wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick this one here. You won't see the question name because we haven't given it one yet. So you just go ahead and select that. One thing you will see though is we do have these question identifiers, this QID 4C7. That's going to match with your identifier right there. So even though you don't have a question label, you'll be able to click it right there. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the different options that we've set up here. So now I can say, okay, when this item fails, I want to give them the option to attach a file or excuse me, a photo or a video. And then I have the option to make it required as well. If I say, okay, if you fail something on this truck, I want a video or a photo detailing what is actually wrong with it, not just a description. So I can add that option there. So we'll go ahead and set that up. The next thing we'll set up is going to be the task on this. What the task does is this allows us to set up follow-up or corrective action on this. So I can say when, again, we're going to grab that same question. When that question fails, what do I want to do with it? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up, if we haven't set up the associate logic yet, which we haven't done, I can set it up here. So I can go ahead and say we're going to associate that to question 1, which was my asset or my select the truck number question. And now you can see we've got that associate logic is turned on in the background. So now this failure will be associated to the truck that was selected in that first drop down. I'm going to select the board. What this is here is this is where that task that's going to be created, where that's going to go in my maintenance section. So that'll be something we'll go over in a future training, is how to set up different maintenance boards. But we can have, just your PM maintenance, where it's just your preventative maintenance, and we can, if necessary, or if you would like, we can set up a separate work board for repairs or whatever it might be, and we can have that task land there. If we want it to just land on our maintenance board, you can go ahead and just search for that board to say, I've only got one board, and this is where those work orders and tasks are going to be created. I'm going to go ahead and just put it right there. This create new task option is something that, what this does is if I click this box, that means every time this issue is reported. So this is my air compressor. If I have an issue with my air compressor, every time it's reported, it's going to create a new task if I check this. Now, you may not want to do that. What will happen if it's unchecked is the first time it's reported, it's going to create a new task. Then every time it is reported after that, until that task has been completed, until that repair has been done, it's going to combine all of those tasks into a single task, and it's just going to basically add that inspection as another record. So let's say I find an issue on this air compressor on Monday, and it creates a task on Monday, and then I, as the driver, I see the same issue Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I report it again. That task that's created by this logic is just going to have 4 forms on it showing that there's this issue. And then let's say the maintenance team, the mechanics get around to it on Thursday, they fix it on Thursday. Then the next time it's reported, let's say I have another issue 6 months from now, and I report an issue with the air compressor again, at that point, it's going to create a new task then. So typically, I would say about 90-95% of the time, we're going to want to go ahead and just leave this off. Then we've got this task description section. If you want to require your teams to provide a description of the issue, which I would recommend, go ahead and turn that on. You can put a quick placeholder in here if you would like. If you want to say describe issue or whatever it might be, you can go ahead and put that in there. And then your days until due, this is when that task is created. We can say, okay, anytime a task is created, give us 5 days to fix it or whatever it might be. You can go ahead and put it in there. And then we have some other options in here. We won't go into too much detail right now on these, but if we wanted to do it, wanted to automatically assign to somebody, we can do that here and set some leads. And I'll show you where you can get more information on that in just a second. But now that I've got this set up, I'm going to go ahead and hit done. The last piece I'm going to set up on this is going to be our notifications. This will be, we have the option to send out emails and text messages when a failure happens. So again, I'm going to set this up the same way. I'm going to say when this question fails, I want to send out a notification, and I can either set this up to go to specific individuals. So let's say I want Blake Burgess to get this email. He's my maintenance guy. He's my lead mechanic. I want him to be notified. I can do that. What I would recommend though, because turnover does happen, people hire new people, people will leave. That can get pretty, it can be pretty admin heavy to be adjusting that all the time anytime someone leaves. So what I would do is I would actually use, best practice would be to use your employee roles and to say, okay, anytime we have a failure, I want to notify my maintenance planner or my maintenance manager. That way, if somebody does leave, you hire somebody new, you can just tag them as the maintenance planner, maintenance manager, and they're going to automatically start getting those notifications. And the other notifications are going to stop without needing to go into every single form and every single question and update this. So I would highly recommend using employee roles for your notifications rather than the individuals here. And then you can choose if you want to send a text, email, if you want to send the PDF for this form as an option to do it there. And then you can add a quick subject to it if you would like. You can just say DVIR inspection item failed. And then we have the option to, just like when we're creating the task on the other one, if I click on this, this will only send a notification the first time that this issue is reported. Every subsequent one, it won't be until that issue is corrected. We get that task completed, and then it will send a notification again. So you can kind of just manage the number of notifications you're getting on failures by doing this. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit done here. And now that I've got all of my question logic set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this question for each of these. So, I mean, there's 30, maybe 25, 30 questions. So what I would do is I would just hit copy 30 times. I'll just do it 4 or 5 times here. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to come in and I'm going to set my question label. So the only thing I need to do at this point is now I can just type in air compressor there. And I can go ahead and close this like we talked about earlier, just to make moving through the form a little bit easier. Air compressor, I've got my airlines. And you can also, instead of hitting close, if you just hit enter, it's going to automatically close that for you. Again, just another little tip there to move through the form faster. And then we can put in battery and so on, right? So it makes it a lot faster if you build the form that way, rather than going through and setting up, all of these on every single question you need to do. You can see how this is much quicker if I just take the time to set it up once and then copy the question as many times as I need to. It makes it a lot faster doing it that route rather than building out each question. Then what I would do now, I build out all of these questions here. I'm going to jump to my next section, which is the trailer section. I'm going to build that one out the exact same way we built out this. I'd put an asset drop down here at the beginning. So we grab the trailer number, and then we would go ahead and set up these questions the same way we did this, do the copy and move on from there. The last things that I'll touch on here, I know we're running short on time, and I want to leave some time to get to some questions that may have come in. But like we talked about with these remarks, that's going to be something where what I would do if we say, I would probably add a final section here, and this would be, we would tag this as our final details. And I would add a section for my remarks. So I'd add a text area here, say remarks. I want to capture the driver's signature, so I can go ahead and do that. We'll add a question here, do signature. So provide a signature box here so I can do driver's signature, and I can enter in those remaining questions there. When I have built this form, if I want to take a look at how this form will look to my users, I can use this preview option here. So if I hit preview, what it's going to do is it's going to save that form for me quickly, and it's going to pull up my preview. So what this does is this will show me how that form is going to look. So again, I only have a single semi truck in this account, so it's going to auto populate with that single one. If I had 10, 30, 50 of them, I would be able to see a list of all of those here, and I can pick. And then as you can see, it's going to pre-populate with my odometer reading. If I want to update that, like we talked about for maintenance purposes or whatever it might be, I can go ahead and update that. And as soon as I submit this form, the asset, next time someone goes to submit an inspection for this 300-1, the odometer reading will be 28,500 rather than the 2,700 that it was, 27,000, excuse me. And then I can see how these inspections are going to work. I can see I've got my description that shows up. We've got that file, that either photo or video required here. And I've got my final section here where I can sign off on it. Now, if I submit this, it won't actually submit a form here in the preview. This will just kind of show you whether or not the form would have submitted, but you can kind of get a feel for how that's going to look here. The last thing I do want to talk about before we jump into Q&A is in my form settings. This is where this is one of the places, there's another place we can do it as well, but this is where I can manage access to this form. So from here, again, that was in form settings. I can come down here to my user role access, and this is where I can go in and I can set, okay, I want my, let's say I want my operators to have access to this. I can add them, and you can add as many different roles as you would like to this. This is going to allow anyone with that user role to view and submit this form. So that's kind of the quick overview of the form builder and of how we would build out this DVIR here. The last thing that I'll touch on here quickly is I'm sure you've seen as we've kind of been navigating around, we do have these little eye icons that are popping up. These eye icons, what they'll do if you click on them, they're going to give you a link to our knowledge base. Let's say you wanted just a quick reminder on, okay, how do I build a form? How do I create a form? You click on that link. It's going to take you to our knowledge base. We can go through. We've got screenshots. It's going to walk you through step by step how to build that form. And we have these embedded throughout the form builder here. So for example, if you forgot how to do the task logic, go ahead, open up the task logic. You've got that little eye icon there. Open it up. And this is going to give you, again, a knowledge base for that. So I know we went through things pretty quickly today. Obviously, there's a lot of information we didn't get to. We didn't talk about some of these additional different logics, or we didn't talk about each question type in full, but we do have these little icons that will take you to our knowledge base that will show you a little bit more what we've, give you a little bit more in-depth training on what each of these items are. So I'm just going to, if there aren't any questions for this session, that's okay. I know we're right about at time. We don't want to take up any more of your time. We really appreciate each of you jumping into the training today. Like we talked about, this is the first in a series that we are going to be doing. So look out for a survey that we are going to be shooting out to our team, or to each of you. And if you have any feedback on this, we would love to get feedback on this. And we would love to know the next part of the tool that you would like to see a training like this on. So we appreciate your time. Again, any questions on which forms you can build out, what options you have, please reach out to your CSMs. They'll be able to talk you through that. And if needed, again, we've got these little icons, link you to a knowledge base, and they'll be able to help you out. But our team is still available at any time to help out when needed. So thank you all very much for your time, and we will see you next time.